if you have begun to move forward from 1 on up to 2 or 3 or so you're starting to get the hang of some of it, then you're doing great. So after just exploring it the small amount of time that we've done, I don't want you to have expectations of already now being it's like a piece of cake or anything. Because this is the piece that 90% of the effectiveness comes from the information that you gather. It's the thing that, in my experience, takes the most creativity. Even after doing it for a long time, I don't always have immediately, oh, this is the question to ask that's going to get it right away, in one question or anything like that. Oftentimes I have to dig around a little bit and just, even go down some blind alleys to discover, okay, this is the one that's really worth exploring. So how many of you now have the sense that you're a little further along on this track of gaining mastery with eliciting the information? Great. Well, then you're in great shape. And if you don't feel that you're yet on that track, then this back here would be an exercise to come back to and work with some more again and again. It's highly worthwhile doing. And on the last day of this segment, we will be starting on step 1 on page 29, I believe it is in your notes, and going through all the steps. So you'll have the contrast of how easy it was today and how much easier it's going to be in a couple of days with the experience between now and then. So just so you know. All right. Now, I have time just for a couple, 2 or 3 questions or comments about your experience in eliciting the information. So in particular, what did you find was useful for you, that helpful in getting to the belief to be changed? What is there, if there's a specific area that's still confusing where you have a question, I'd love to find out about those things.
I didn't do anything yet, so I don't know.
So you have not been the person who's eliciting the belief yet. Okay, so you may have observed something that was a learning for you or that you have a question about. Okay, great. Okay. All right. So, and how was it for you, Anwar, to explore your beliefs?
They led me to a place where about myself that I know, but I'm hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
They helped me to face it. Say yes.
Excellent. Well, that's wonderful. So congratulations. Yes, absolutely. So that's, how many of you had that experience when you were the person who had the belief and they were asking you questions, that you got to a place that was there and yet you had hidden it from yourself, and it's like uncovering something that you'd kept a secret? Okay, great. So any other things you found helpful? Comments about your experience? Specific questions?
I really did find it hard to get a cause-effect.
Mm-hmm.
That was earlier this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Or say, for example, complex equivalence. I still found it difficult to find it.
You found it difficult to find it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what made it difficult for you?
Just to be able to identify it. There'd be a string of words, and
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean? And maybe you'd have the cause and then a string of words and then the effect at the end of it. Stuff like that. It was hard to actually search through it. It was
Okay.
easy for me to get lost.
Okay. So, and since you mentioned that it sounds to me that although it was hard, you noticed this structure, that there can be a cause and then a whole bunch of other words in between and then an effect, that you need to kind of take a moment and step back and evaluate the information to pull it out of the information.
It's very easy for it to just slip right by,
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not paying attention, that's quite fun.
Mm-hmm. So, Anne, did you also have the experience of discovering the cause-effect or complex equivalence?
To some degree.
Okay, good.
To some degree, like I can
Mm-hmm.
I look back now and, it was easier for me to sit back and watch someone else ask the questions and see it, as opposed to me asking the questions and then trying to observe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and isn't that interesting? So from that, and just to repeat the comment for everyone, so he's saying it was easier to observe somebody else asking the questions and to spot the belief, as opposed to if I'm the one who's asking the questions, then it's more challenging to, locate the belief. So does this make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it can be a useful part of our strategy. In addition to being associated with the person gathering information, it can be a useful part of our strategy to also go into observer position and to look at it from the outside, to dissociate from it in order to analyze it. Dissociation is great for analyzing. So when we're in the information gathering role, we want to be able to do both. If we just stayed out here and we were the analyst, then we'd be too dissociated to lead the other person into their body. If I'm out here analyzing everything all the time, then how am I going to associate my client into their experience? So I need to be associated enough to guide the other person and have the choice of stepping out of it to analyze. Make sense? Yes, like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, one more thing. Yes, Paul.
I've got a situation here with my exemplar, and it's a belief that's okay at some times during the year, but it's not okay at other times during the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And, I'm a little kind of partially stuck with how to deal with that when it's okay at one point, or sometimes, but not okay at other times.
Okay, great example. How many of you, anybody else uncover something like that? A belief that is useful in some contexts, but not others. Okay? So if we have something like that, then what we can do is to just modify the belief slightly to include those contextual markers. So for example, let's say in my relationship with my child, when he needs something, I am responsible to help him get it. Now, given my child is not 2 years old yet, is this a belief you'd want to change? No. However, if we change this to, what would be an example? Co-workers. With my co-workers. When they need something, I am responsible to help them get it. Now, could that be a limiting belief? Yeah. Okay, and depending on what your role is with your coworkers and et cetera. So, yeah, just by adding a marker up front that says, well, this is the context in which we're dealing, then it becomes, you can narrow it down to a belief that you do want to change and preserve the belief in other places where you want to keep it.
Excuse me, I'm kind of clear on that, but not exactly. So what we're doing is...
If you can give me the
working at-
belief, then...
Yeah. Well, the belief is that during, let's say for 4 months out of the year, specifically four specific months out of the year, if I say no, I lose clients and income. There's another one with people, but that's...
Is that true? That during those 4 months out of the year, you lose clients and income?
Well, that's where I was getting at is how do you know that that's true?
Okay.
Or
So, well,
it's not mine.
it's somebody else's. Okay. I think that this might be a little more complex than I wanted to deal with right now for this point. What I'd like to do, though, it's an interesting thing to continue discussing. How about if we get together and if somebody else that has this belief is interested as well in exploring it further, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay.
Okay? Great. But I like your point, though, about sometimes a belief can be limiting in one context and not another, so then it's useful to narrow it down to just where you want to change it. Okay. So, as Connie Ray was developing her language pattern skills, she kept pestering and pestering Richard Bandler for how he was going about getting so good with language himself. And Richard Bandler tended to be a little bit evasive on this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. He'd say some fluffy answer that Connie Ray wasn't totally satisfied with. So she continued to pester and pester. And finally, Richard Bandler said, all right, Connie Ray, if you really want to get good at this stuff, then just do what I did. And take an outcome and use every form of presupposition there is to presuppose the outcome. So guess what we get to do next? We get to use a tried and true method for getting these language patterns into our experience. Now, and we're going to shift now from the area of sleight of mouth into the general area of working with presuppositions. And I know that presuppositions has been an ongoing part of your training and you're familiar with the term, but just to give you kind of a metaphor for presuppositions and what they are and how they work. Imagine that you are in a room with all kinds of furniture and other people and little decorations, artwork on the walls, etc. You're in this room, and the room is darkened. It's kind of dim. You can see what's happening around the room, but it's not bright and clear. Now, let's say you have a flashlight that you can point on a particular object in the room. You point that flashlight on, let's say, a painting across the room. Now, the more you point that flashlight at the painting, does that make you more aware or less aware of everything else in the room? Less aware. And so therefore, what you're pointing that flashlight at is what you're consciously aware of. And everything else in the room is what you are unconsciously aware of. You're still taking in all the information. It's just that you're not processing it on a conscious level because you're consciously focused on that painting that you're shining a flashlight at. And that's how presuppositions work. By pointing that flashlight at something that we really don't care about, our goal is to allow the things that we really do care about to go in more unconsciously. That's what we're after with presuppositions. So rather than saying, so you can be resourceful, that points a flashlight right at the subject of you being resourceful, right? Rather than saying that, we say, so since you are so resourceful, what are some of the ways that you acknowledge that for yourself? Now we're pointing the flashlight at how do you acknowledge it, which isn't important particularly. You could acknowledge it this way or not at all. So long as the resources are there, that's the most important thing to me, the communicator. Okay? So that's what we're going for with presuppositions. Now, in your notes, you have a whole list of presuppositional forms starting on page 23. And so what I'd like to demonstrate this is somebody who has a very simple outcome that can be expressed in a few words, such as, I can be confident, or my outcome is, I wish to remember details more effectively, or my outcome is, I wish to, what's that? To have a sharp memory, yes. Or whatever your outcome is. So a short outcome like that. The reason I want a short one is that we're going to be presupposing it in a longer sentence. Yes. And let me find out what it is first to make sure it's appropriate.
I want to do my finances easily and enjoyably.
Okay, to easily and enjoyably do your finances. Come on up. And have a seat and a mic. Does he get a mic, or we're fine on that? Okay, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is to start with presuppositional form number 1 in the notes and apply his outcome with this. So, I'm wondering, is the ease that you will experience doing your finances one that you've experienced before?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, great, great. And so we're going to just keep going. As we go, we're going to just notice the response also. And what we're noticing there is he accepting the presupposition? Is he rejecting it? Is he showing signs of shift? Is he stepping into it or not? Those are the kinds of things we're calibrating for as we go along. Okay, so Ron, after you have experienced ease, and what was the other word? Ease and?
Enjoyment.
Enjoyment, yes. After you have experienced ease and enjoyment in doing your finances, are you going to be surprised, or are you going to be more kind of take it in stride?
Probably take it in stride.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And do you think that it is your experiences with doing things easily and enjoyably that will allow you to have this outcome, or do you think it is the experiences that you've observed in other people that will allow you to best achieve this?
Probably my own, I would assume. Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. And so now, do you think that what you will most enjoy about the financial process is that you are making progress and getting something done, or do you think that what you will most enjoy is the act of figuring something out?
I like a challenge, so yeah, it'd have
Okay.
to be the act of figuring something out.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So now this next one is called stress sentences. And the flashlight metaphor really comes to bear here. I'm going to just explain to the group for a moment. So if I say, so George drove home quickly, then what is presupposed?
Who's got a car?
Someone went home quickly, drove home quickly, right? And George is the thing that you would, if you're going to negate the sentence, then you'd say, no, he didn't, right? Now, what if I said, okay, now George drove home quickly? Now, if you were going to question that sentence, which part would you question?
He might have gone, whether he drove or went on the bus or
Exactly. Yeah, so now if I say George drove home quickly, where did he go exactly? Yeah, if he didn't go home, then where did he go? So, yeah. His wife might like to know this. So, George drove home quickly. Now, if you're going to negate it, you'd say, well, maybe he went home slowly instead. So, again, it's where do you shine that flashlight? So, now, Ron, what I'm wondering is it at home that you're going to be enjoying doing your finances quickly, or is it at some other location that this will be occurring?
Home.
Home, okay, great. And the stress sentence, you always use that in combination with another form as well. Now, what do you think will be the first result of your doing your finances easily and enjoyably?
Having an understanding of where my money goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, excellent. And actually, I skipped one here. So I'm wondering, Ron, if you are aware already of your present level of enjoyment with doing your finances.
Wasn't aware till now.
Okay. Okay, cool. And so when you have this outcome, I'm wondering, is there going to be anybody else that enjoys their finances even more than you do?
What's his name? Alan Greenspan or whatever his name is.
He might have even more enjoyment and ease with it than you.
More than likely, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, and notice that even if there is somebody else in the world that enjoys it more, that still presupposes that he has the enjoyment and ease. Okay, so Now, this next one is really quite similar. So I would be astonished if there were anybody in this room that had as much of a capacity for enjoying and a sense of ease about doing their finances as you have.
I would be astonished as well.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so this one again, those two are closely related. The more or less one and the as well as or as blank as. Now, do you expect that you will have this enjoyment and ease not only about your finances but about other tasks too?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's just how life is.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right. Absolutely. And when you find yourself renewing the ease and enjoyment with which you experience doing your finances, are you going to recognize that?
I think it's very hard for me to do my finances without recognizing it.
Okay. Oh, what I meant was, will you recognize that you are renewing your ease and enjoyment, or will that happen just unconsciously?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And notice that it doesn't matter what answer he gives me, does it? I mean, at the same time, it matters in the sense that he could say, well, wait a minute. I'm not going to have ease and enjoyment when I do my finances. He could just negate or reject the presupposition altogether. And so I'm calibrating for that. But other than that, if he answers my question and he's associated into it, then that's what we're going for here. And now, Ron, except for, or let's say, do you think it's only the ease and enjoyment with which you do your finances that is going to shift? Or do you think your efficiency will also improve?
Well, yeah, as you get better at things, obviously you get more efficient with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know that I'll get more efficient.
You know that you'll get more efficient too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. And will you want to continue enjoying doing your finances easily?
It's better than the alternative, so yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. And, you know, I'd be amazed if you were to ever turn into a person who could not simply enjoy doing your finances easily.
I don't know about that one.
Now, this one I want to unpack a little bit, actually. So, because this one's a little bit counterintuitive. So what we're saying is, wouldn't it be weird if you were to suddenly become the sort of person who could not already have this outcome, or who was not capable of having this outcome? And so what's presupposed, of course, is that you are currently capable of having this outcome. And so when you say, I don't know about that one, is that just like kind of hard to follow it, or?
Yeah, I think if you were to repeat it again, maybe I'd get
Okay.
a better understanding of where you're coming from.
Okay. So I just think it would just be really strange if you were to suddenly turn into a person who is not already capable of this ease and enjoyment when doing finances.
Sorry, one more time?
So if you were to change into someone who couldn't enjoy your finances, wouldn't that be odd?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. So sometimes just saying it a couple times or saying it a little different way can make a difference. Although confusion is not necessarily a negative outcome either. So sometimes it's useful in loosening things up. Now, do you already believe in the ability that you have to easily and enjoyably do your finances?
From past experience where I got all excited about doing it, I mean, that kind of wore off after a while, but yeah. I know that I was capable of it. I knew that the outcome was something that would be enjoyable. Absolutely.
Great. Okay, absolutely. Now, it's really fortunate that you have this ability to enjoy doing your finances easily, isn't it?
It's really fortunate that sorry, say that again?
It's really fortunate that you have this ability to easily and enjoyably do your finances, isn't it?
I don't know. That's pretty presupposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you don't know if it's fortunate or not?
I don't know. I don't know if
Okay.
it's fortunate or not.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
Right. Because notice that whether or not he agrees it's fortunate doesn't matter, right? As far as presupposing the outcome. So, okay, there you go. So, in other words, well, actually, you can just stay in the experience of just being you. We can analyze it later. Okay, so now, if you weren't a person who was capable of easily and enjoyably doing your finances, I bet that you wouldn't have even shown up at this training.
That's pretty cause effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So in another way, we'll just do this another way. So again, this one involves some negation. Some of the ones that involve negation can take a little bit of unpacking to really grasp how they work. So if you didn't have the innate ability to enjoy doing your finances easily, you wouldn't have the ability to get up in the morning.
That's different.
Now, it doesn't even necessarily always make sense. And he could disagree with me and say, well, actually, my innate ability to enjoy doing my taxes has nothing to do with getting up in the morning.
But nonetheless, it's assumed that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clever.
Because what we're going for is pointing his attention to, well, does this really have anything to do with getting up in the morning? You know, because we're presupposing his ability. Now, in the unlikely event that you were to one day have less than full enjoyment with doing your finances, how would you like to respond to that to recreate your enjoyment and ease with doing your finances?
In a way that I had it before, I guess.
Okay, all right. So again, I want to unpack this one for the group a little bit. Connie Ray calls this the airline pattern. In the event of a water landing. And what we want to do with this pattern is talk about the possibility of what if the problem did recur without presupposing that it's likely to. Here we can talk about it and presuppose that we do not expect it to happen, and yet figure out what we would do in that event. So keep it as a hypothetical thing. So what's presupposed here is that we do not expect that to happen. Now, let's go to questions. And of course, questions have been something that I've been incorporating with a lot of the other patterns along the way, too. These tend to be more effective the more of them you combine into the same sentence. So, do you think that you'll first notice yourself easily doing your finances, or enjoyably doing your finances, or do you think you'll notice them both at the same time?
I would say probably both.
Both
Yeah.
together?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So next is the negative question. So Ron, I'm wondering, weren't you aware of that strategy that you have for enjoying tasks?
Wasn't I aware of it?
Yeah, weren't you already aware of the strategy that you have currently for enjoying doing tasks?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Wasn't aware of it. So this is negative question. So if we say, well, weren't you at such and such a location? What's presupposed is that we think you really were. So if I say, so weren't you aware of such and such? What's presupposed is that I think that you were aware. Okay? In this case, he's saying, well, no, I actually wasn't aware. But that's all right, because we still presuppose the outcome further on down the line. Now, rhetorical question. So I'm wondering, Ron, in the greater scheme of things, what difference does it make if, you know, there have been some times in the past when you haven't enjoyed doing your finances?
Sorry, say that again?
Okay. So in the greater scheme of things, what difference does it really make if there have been some times in the past when you haven't enjoyed doing your finances?
No difference, really.
No difference. Okay. So rhetorical question just means that by the way I'm asking the question, I'm presupposing the answer I expect. So I don't really require an answer. Like if I say, so, who cares if you weren't spelling champion? Or what does it really matter if you forget some of the details of a process once? What I'm presupposing then is that it doesn't matter. That's the presupposed message. So Ron, I'm just wondering whether you're not already enjoying a sense of ease with your finances that you were not even aware of.
I guess. I don't know.
Could be.
Could be, yeah.
Could be, could not be. There's a possibility there.
Yeah.
Okay. So the spurious not, I wonder if you're not such and such, presupposes that I really think you are. Some of these things are just kind of quirks in English. They may or may not translate into any other language. If I say, I wonder if he isn't a very clever person, what's presupposed is that I think he is a clever person. Okay. So now, Ron, I'm wondering if you would, I know you could, if you would give us a little bit of feedback about your experience with these presuppositions, and let me give it a little bit of contrast. How is it different from just saying, Ron, you can easily and enjoyably do your finances?
I can easily say no.
Mm-hmm.
It's just basically, it's a statement that I can easily negate.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the difference.
Okay. So, and as your outcome was presupposed, what was your experience in general?
Well, in order for me to even, it was hard to argue,
Mm-hmm.
basically. It basically said right there and then that this is the case, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it did take the focus off of it consciously as well,
Mm-hmm.
which was interesting. But I mean, I did it last year, so I was pretty aware of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So,
Right.
But even that being the case, I still had that, that experience of it first.
Right. Okay. And these patterns can still work for you even after you've learned them. So, okay. Fortunately, this is the case. So thank you, Ron, for
Thank you.
coming up.
Thank
And
you, guys.
yeah. Okay. So it occurs to me that I have been a bit remiss about my afternoon break, have I not? So let's take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. I'll briefly go over the exercise, and then you'll go out and do it.